Good morning. Welcome to Freeway Bible Study. Today is the 24th day of April. We're going to study Genesis 36, the Dukes of Edom. My name is Kurt Bell. I'm your host. Oh, by the way, I'm a non-believer. Yeah, I'm an atheist. I enjoy reading the Bible and other mythology. But I don't believe any of the supernatural bits about God and soul, heaven and hell, original sin, any of that stuff. So let's get into it. Genesis 36. We're learning about the lineage of Esau, who was the eldest son of Isaac. And in our last couple of chapters, we were learning all about, actually quite a few chapters, the story of Jacob, who was Isaac's younger son, and the son who had the falling out with Esau and had to run away. And now Esau and Jacob are reunited, sort of. I mean, they're back on peaceful terms. They're both prosperous and doing well. Esau is still the oldest son, but he's given up his birthright and his blessing, the blessing from his father. So at a slight disadvantage. And in the last chapter, we find after Jacob had returned back to the land of his father, he had gone on another journey to Bethel to thank the Lord for their safe passage from the land of his uncle. In this chapter, we're going to get a pretty quick recounting of the descendants of Esau, who is also known as Edom. The Bible introduces the term Edom several times. It makes very clear specification that Esau is Edom. And I looked up Edom and discovered that there's actually an area where historical tribes of Edom are been known to have lived. It's kind of a hilly, kind of a wasteland. I don't know, maybe I'm using that wasteland a little too liberally, but kind of a hilly country on the east side of the Jordan River, just above I think it's the Gulf of Arabia. Is it the Gulf of Arabia? That sounds like something different. But the Red Sea has a little, if you look at a map of the area, there's the Red Sea has a little kind of a proboscis looking thing that kind of sticks up where the Jordan River comes in, the mouth of the Jordan River. And just a little bit above that, maybe, I'm guessing 30-50 miles above that is where Edom is. And there's actually a town, I can't remember the name, I think it starts with an S, that is kind of the town of that area. And if you continue further up the Jordan, you'll eventually come to the Dead Sea and then the Sea of Galilee further up. And just about 30 to 50 miles above where the Jordan River enters into the Red Sea on the east side, not quite by the bank, but inland a little bit, that's Edom. And there's lots of historical records of the folks of Edom, from the Egyptians to the Assyrians to the Babylonians, the Assyrians as well. They describe them as people that are kind of on the fringe, kind of like outlanders. And they did nearly get wiped out at least once. I think it was the Syrians that almost wiped them out. But then under the Babylonians and the Egyptians, the Babylonians in particular, they prospered, and they also had trading. They traded with the Egyptians as well. So these are apparently real people. And if you believe the Bible, Esau is their head. So after Jacob returns from his little pilgrimage in Genesis 35, he went out to Bethel to have an altar to the Lord and cleanse his people. After he returns, he and Esau were told in Genesis 36, we're told that this country ain't big enough for the two of us. Maybe that's partially because of the slightly bad blood between them. Maybe it's, you want to keep your you're good to keep good relations. Good neighbors and fences do make. Is that how the phrase goes? Keep your not keep your enemies closer, because they're on good settled terms, but it seems to make sense for them to kind of separate a little bit. That maybe that's a personal or political motivation. There's also certainly a practical motivation, which is that the vast flocks between the two brothers are more than the land the one area of land can sustain. So they decide to separate. And you'll remember that way back a few chapters back in Genesis, when Jacob first returned to this land, he and Esau settled some distance apart. Actually, Esau went ahead to be with his father, Isaac, while Jacob set up camp near Shechem, where he without wasting much time, went ahead and slaughtered all the males of Shechem as well, and took their women and girls as slaves. So that was interesting. So I thought they were already separated, but this is indicating that they still need more room. Or maybe after Genesis 35, maybe Jacob took his people back not to the waste of Shechem, which, what a waste, right? I mean, he killed all the men and the boys, took all the girls and women slaves, and then left to Bethel, and then came back and just didn't even bother to use that city, but just came back to his brother Esau. He says, "Hey Esau, I'm here at last." Because remember, he did promise he'd show up a long time ago. "I'm here at last." Leaving a trail of ruin in his wake. Ugh. These patriarchs. Well, we don't know exactly, but we do know that they separate. And Esau then goes off in his way out, and I wish I could remember the name of the city. It starts with a Z, but it's not founded yet. But he goes off into the waste, and he sets up a home there. And I guess it's a pretty hard life. And what we have now is one of those famous biblical, not quite begets, but almost begets. It's those biblical. It's a description of the names of the wives of Esau's wives and concubines. I think it just is wives. No, it is concubines too. And then also their sons, a detailed listing of all their sons, and of course there's lots of those. No mention really of the daughters. Now, so that goes on for several sections where we have that long listing of that, and I'm struggling because my memory's faltering a little bit. There's not a lot of meat to this chapter, in particular at this point. It's basically a long list of the wives and concubines and their offspring, their sons, and then a listing of what are they called in the King James Version, dukes, which I had to look up, because the only time I'd really heard of dukes is you think about King Arthur and the knights, and you imagine a duke as some mid-level aristocrat, or I've heard of Duke Ellington, and I really didn't know what duke meant in the context of the Bible. And then before I had a chance to look it up, I read the New International Version, which told me that a duke was a chief. Well, it didn't tell me that. It just simply used the word duke, chief, in place of duke. And so I knew, I guess it means like a boss. And then I looked up duke in particular in my Bible dictionary, and it said, yeah, duke is like a regional leader, a lord of some, a warlord or something like that. So think minor king or something like that. So then there's a long list of dukes, and one of them kind of stood out for me. It was Tinma, one of the names. I actually, I read this as I always do. I read it like 5 or 6 times, and after several readings, I recognized that the word Tinma, the name Tinma, had shown up in the list of concubines at the start. Remember, there's 2 lists. There's the list of Esau's wives, concubines, and their sons, and then there's the second list of dukes. Duke this, Duke that, Duke whatever the heck, and all that stuff. And after reading it several times, I noticed the same name in both lists, Tinma. And I was like, that's strange. Maybe I thought maybe Tinma was one of the sons of one of the wives or concubines, who then became because he's listed as the first duke or the first leader. Lo and behold, I was shocked to discover that Tinma in the listing, the first list, was not a duke. It wasn't even a man. It was a woman, and furthermore, a concubine. First thought that went through my mind then was, oh, it must be a name like the name Chris or something like that can be used for male or female. So that must be it. But I was really curious. It kind of was sticking in my mind, especially given the chronology. Whereas Tinma was one of Esau's concubines, and also the very first of the dukes. So that kind of made me think there's got to be more to this, right? That can't be a coincidence, because that kind of makes sense that someone from Esau's immediate circle will take over when Esau dies. And so I did a little research. I typed in Google, something about Tinma, and found a little bit of biblical scholarship that said, indeed, that is a question, that is a thing. And there are scholars out there who hold that Tinma is indeed, the two names are indeed the same person. I also read that there was some speculation that it might be, like I said, a male and female name. But very interesting. And furthermore, there was another one in there that I didn't get a chance. I ran out of time. There's another name in there that's also another concubine who was listed as a duke as well. It's something like it's not Beersheba, but it's a long, I want to say Beelzebub, but that's not a good name. So it was a long B name, and I want to look that up. So what is it about these Edomites? Were they kind of like Amazons in a way? Did they have their women have more power and authority than your average bear, your average Canaanite? Remember, these women, I believe, because remember, Esau's first wives came from the Hittites and from the Canaanites, in particular from the Hittites, and Rebecca did not like that. Was it Rebecca who didn't like that? His mother did, and Isaac did not like that. That's one of the reasons why they sent Jacob back to the homeland to get a wife, get a good, decent Hebrew wife. Not any of these wives from the Canaanites. But Esau hadn't done that. So could we be seeing a vestigial piece of Canaanite culture showing up in one of these women actually becoming, exercising power and becoming a duke? Who knows? Anyway, that's where the chapter ends, I think, right? Let's see, does it end anything else? Oh, there's a little bit in there, there's a little footnote in there about one of the sons. They're listing off all these sons, and one of the sons says, oh, and he's the one that found the famous hot springs out in the desert while he was searching. So there's that, for whatever that's worth. I think that's the end of it. The only other thing I want to add was that yesterday's effort, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, was where Genesis 35 was where I first encountered the use of the word soul in the Bible, at least that I can recall. And I posted on Facebook asking folks, what is a soul? I couldn't, because the Bible didn't define its terms, right? You introduced a new term, you should define it. It didn't. I didn't get any, and I didn't expect, Facebook to answer all my questions. It's not like, I don't imagine it's a great oracle, but nevertheless, it didn't really, I didn't get a good answer. The only real answer that I got from anybody, in terms of a definite, direct definition, was saying that it was a spirit, which didn't help much, because spirits is vague and nebulous as the term soul. I did get a couple of links, one of which was a link to a definition of consciousness, which was interesting in its own right, but still still doesn't answer the question about what a soul is. And then another one from Michael was a link to some Hebrew etymology for, I'm guessing it's Hebrew, it's Jewish terms that are used in conjunction with soul, or maybe in place of it, basically, and showing how they're used in Hebrew. That was very interesting as well, but still, what I was looking for was a concrete definition of what a soul is, which I didn't expect an answer, because I don't think anybody's got one. I don't think anybody really knows. Soul is one of those terms like spirit and spirituality and things like that are, they're catch-alls. They're comfort words that you can a place to place your feelings and better yet your trust, without really knowing exactly what it is. Just kind of couching and leaning on the fact that we all kind of tacitly agree to know what it is without actually requiring anyone to define our terms. And I was trying to get past that to the actual definition of terms. No such luck. I didn't expect I would, and I didn't, and I carry on. But that's not a good sign. I mean, keep in mind that every time I ask a question like that, and there are believers present in reading those things, and I believe there are people out there reading these things, and they don't respond, that's building the case against the Bible. I would think that those who are believers and who are going to be defenders of the faith, and who wouldn't be? If you're a believer, wouldn't you step forward into the fray? I think that my questions are not confrontational. I try to couch them in such a way, and I try to make my responses like that as well. Wouldn't you want to step forward and give your answer, even if that answer simply is, just take it on faith, Kurt? I just believe by faith, and rest my case on that. Do I want to say that? Do I have more respect for people that say that? No, I guess I don't, because I don't have very much respect for people who basically hide behind faith. But it's silence is typically what I'm seeing with this stuff, and that tells me that the people on the other side either don't have anything to say or don't care to say anything. In either case is a strike against the case that they're making. So with that, I'll go ahead and stop. And tomorrow, Genesis 37. Let's see what's next in our tale. Have a great day, everybody. Make it a good life. Bye-bye.